Всем привет and welcome back to another Tip Thursday with me, Connor Klein. This is Lazar Experience, and in this video we're going to be discussing LingQ. It's a software program that I'm using to help me with my vocabulary and learning vocabulary with Ukrainian in particular. I'm speaking to you from Odessa in Ukraine. Earlier in the year I was learning Ukrainian in Lviv, which is in the west of the country, and I used LingQ, their software program, to help me with Ukrainian while I was there a little bit. So let's get into today's video. Drop the intro. Boom. So, LingQ, it was created by my good friend and fellow polyglot, Steve Kaufman, who's actually from Canada in British Columbia. And I did a few videos with Steve in his office. We discussed lots about his influences, what influenced him, of course, to create this platform. And he is a huge fan of Dr. Stephen Krashen's work. Now, Dr. Stephen Krashen has published a lot of research about what he calls a comprehensible input method. Now, that basically involves getting a lot of input, which is like listening to a lot of content in your target language, in the language you're learning, also reading a lot of it. And with that, you basically start to absorb a lot of the words and the structures, and it's a necessary step if you're actually going to be able to learn the language effectively. It's called comprehensible input because you need to be able to understand enough of the language in order to get some value from it. If it's too difficult, basically you have to keep looking up words or you don't understand from the context, then it's too hard and you won't actually learn effectively. But the opposite is true. If it's too easy, then you don't really learn anything new from it. So you need to be challenging yourself. So it needs to be just a little bit too difficult. There is some discussion about what percentage of comprehension is optimal. I'm not going to go into that. It could be 70%, it could be 90%. So that's actually what Steve has used and integrated onto the platform when he designed LingQ. And it actually goes through all four competences, which are reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Today it did start off with just mainly input in that sense that you would actually just listen and read. Now it actually copes with all four of them, and basically that's what Steve has designed. So enough of me rambling on about the theory and the background. Let's get into actually showing you how LingQ itself works as a platform and why you should consider maybe taking a look at it as well. So what are the pros and cons of using LingQ? It's definitely a very effective method for remembering vocabulary because you're reading so much and you're getting to see exactly the words that you already know and the ones that you don't, and then basically the software brings those words back up to you in context periodically so that you don't forget them. So that's a really a big advantage, and that's definitely the best I've seen from a platform in order to do that. So this has been the core of what the system is about. The fact that they've added an option that you can actually book a tutor through the platform is also great because then you don't have to go to another platform, and that makes it more like a one-stop shop, as I was saying, that they haven't quite got to yet, but I still think that's a nice add-on. I really encourage that you get a tutor to help you with all this, because all these software programs, no matter what it is, even if you're using something like Duolingo, which I'm not a fan of, I think it's just a gimmick, but no matter what it is, whether it's one of these programs like you were reviewing LingQ, of course, but it's even the other ones that I have on my channel that you've seen, they will help you with different parts, and all of them add something to you, but they're all complementary. You know, there's no substitute for going out there and speaking to real people, and if you don't have those around you all the time, like I'm here in Odessa in Ukraine, so I can actually speak Russian non-stop if I want to, but even then a tutor is really helpful for just fine-tuning things, and I really encourage that you go and do that. So the fact that LingQ is moving towards that kind of having everything integrated, as I said, now they have option to have writing, listening, speaking, of course, with the tutor, in addition to the original main strength of the platform, is great, and I think that's another reason for you to look at it. So I think that's a big pro for the site. Now, the cons. Honestly, it can be a bit boring unless you got the right content that's really interesting for you. And that's always a tricky thing because I don't think you should really spend a lot of time working on something that's not super interesting for you, because you'll just get bored and then not be motivated. I always think that what makes you come back and do that exercise again the next day is actually the most useful for you. So even if it's not technically the most effective in terms of vocabulary, it would still be better to keep you motivated. And at times with these platforms, I'm just not feeling it. And I think that's maybe where gamification could come in with all these points and links. And I know that's what fuels a lot of popularity of Duolingo, for example. And that's something that I find a bit gimmicky, but if it helps you, then yeah, it helps you, motivates you to come back, then go for it. Also on the platform, not very modern in terms of its interface, in terms of the graphics and stuff. That's just my taste, and I think a lot of other sites are just aesthetically a lot more pleasing to use than the current version of Link. And I'm speaking to you, of course, in September 2018, so just bear that in mind. It may have gotten more aesthetically pleasing, a bit nicer on the eye, a bit more modern in the meantime. And always these platforms are of course complementary. As I was saying, that's not really a negative, it's just something to bear in mind when you're making your decision. So it definitely helped me overall with learning Ukrainian, which is what I was using for when I was in Lviv, and especially with reading, that really helped because it's a different alphabet. I wasn't so used to having to read in Ukrainian when I was there. So just bear all that in mind when you're making analysis, and of course I have it linked below, so go and check it out. So, big question is, do I recommend Link? Now, I've outlined the pros and cons to using the platform, and I see it more as a complementary product than something that you can use, you know, as a one-stop shop for learning language. I did say they have expanded it to include other elements in language learning away from its original input print method, like just you reading, but I still think that's a strong point, that's a strong suit. But going forward, they may actually expand on those elements like speaking, listening, and of course writing, and then it can really become just a one platform. So it has a membership plan, you can go and check it out. I have a link of course in the description, so go take a look at it. If it's for you, go use it, especially if you plan to read a lot, you're maybe at that intermediate phase, and I think it's really strong. I used it for Ukrainian when I was starting out, but I do speak intermediate Russian, so I was able to understand a reasonable amount of Ukrainian written, so it did help me. But I think if you're a complete beginner, then that might be a little bit more difficult, so just bear all that in mind. That's the end of today's video. If you have used Link, let us all know in the comment section below, because it helps everybody out, not just listening to me, but also your thoughts. And if you have your own personal experience, please share it below. And if you enjoyed this video, big thumbs up, strike the like button, and if you're not a subscriber, squeeze that red subscribe button and whack the notification bell so that you're notified whenever I upload a new video here on YouTube. And boy, do I have lots more exciting videos coming for you in the next few weeks. I've got lots of great content coming from here, so many videos. Gonna have my final travel vlogs, and then I will be traveling a bit more here in Ukraine and maybe back to Belarus. Let's see what happens. So that's it, and I will see all of your smiling, enthusiastic faces for Eastern Europe soon in the next video. It's Do pobачення and do svidania from Odessa, Ukraine. Ciao.